Captain Midnight.
There will be some light spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine in this video, because originally this was going to be more of a straightforward review of that movie, but then the Doctor Doom news happened, and as I sat back down to get to the script, I gotta be honest, I kind of lost interest in doing a full review. I didn't think it was a stunning MCU comeback, nor did I believe it was a travesty that spelled the end of film or anything. I was fairly lukewarm. A lot of that springs from the fact that I didn't think the movie was that funny, but to be honest, I didn't think that was all that interesting to write about. What I do find fascinating though, is how the last month shows both how important nostalgia is to the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, and a great illustration of why they're going that direction, with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine pushing the box office to heights never before seen by the Deadpool series. Not to mention the fact that the last MCU movie to really unambiguously hit before Deadpool and Wolverine was Spider-Man No Way Home. Add that all together, and I think it's pretty easy to see that this is the direction they want to go in. And I believe that gives us a glimpse into what the future of the MCU might be like. And I think that's worthy of a video of its own, so let's get into it. You know, after I mention that you can like this video to help it get shared with more people, and if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do that too.
Tag, you're it. Had enough Cajun? Just say Oncle.
When looking at Deadpool and Wolverine, the buddy comedy duo at the film's center is actually really standard for a Ryan Reynolds movie. Every Deadpool movie has paired him with a tough, more stoic traditional hero type. My favorite, Colossus in the first film, and Cable in the second. Even non-Deadpool Reynolds movies, like Netflix's Red Notice, have tapped into this exact setup. It's pretty old hat at this point. What sets this new one apart is the attachment that audiences are bringing to Wolverine. A fond association with Hugh Jackman as the character that began almost 25 years ago. In recent years, Marvel has really been realizing the power of those old fond feelings. No Way Home is the most obvious example, but they've ended up experimenting with it everywhere, from Multiverse of Madness to the ending of the Marvels. And now I think we're going to see that fully blossom, and I suspect that it's only going to get more prevalent going forward. 6 years ago, I made a video speculating on what I wanted to see in the MCU's take on the X-Men, and man, looking back on that video, it's clear I was very naive about a few things. The biggest one being that Disney/Marvel would want to make a super clean break from the Fox era and start something new and disconnected from those films to call their own. This made a lot of sense to me in the era of X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, but it's definitely looking less and less true these days. They seem to want to remind people of those movies at every opportunity. If it was just confined to Deadpool and Wolverine, that would be one thing. I actually kind of enjoyed the idea of the cameos in that movie being mostly a hodgepodge of roles from not particularly well-received movies, like Jennifer Garner as Elektra or Chris Evans as the Human Torch, or even ones that never got off the ground at all, like Channing Tatum's Gambit. Quick side note though, am I the only one who's kind of annoyed that the whole movie is framed as this ode to the Fox era of superheroes, but one of its biggest gets is Wesley Snipes' Blade, whose trilogy was done by New Line Cinema and not 20th Century Fox? Am I literally the only person who cares about this? I mean, probably. Anyway, I think the third Deadpool movie being a self-indulgent cameo fest is perfectly in line with the character, and I don't have a big issue with it. But it is strange to me how much this mentality can be seen in the rest of the MCU. People call Deadpool gratuitous with this stuff, but I'm far more shocked by that Marvel's ending with Monica Rambeau and Beast in the Fox universe. And the more I think about it, definitely not in a good way. The Marvels flopped hard, so I kinda doubt that we'll get a straightforward follow-up to that scene, but it still signals to me that they plan on working the Fox universe into things in a way that I'm not sure is necessary. Wallowing in nostalgia when forging a new path forward could be far better. Nostalgia has been a powerful tool in Hollywood for years, we all know that. It's a quick way to create that emotional connection to many of our childhoods, or at the very least, an era of superhero movies, whether that be X2 or Logan, that we remember more fondly. Marvel definitely knows this. They understand that by bringing back Hugh Jackman or Robert Downey Jr., they're placing a solid bet that they're not just making something that will be greeted as yet another Marvel movie, they're potentially creating a cultural event. It worked incredibly well for Spider-Man No Way Home. Seeing Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield don the Spidey costumes again was huge. Like Wolverine and Deadpool 3, they were almost certainly the factor that made that third Tom Holland Spidey easily the biggest of the three. But while nostalgia can be used well, if you watch my videos, you know that I was definitely a fan of seeing old Tobey back, and I think Andrew Garfield gives one of the best performances in that movie. And for the record, I think Hugh Jackman brought his A game in Deadpool. The fact is, I think it's just far too alluring to these studios as a crutch. Relying too heavily on it will quickly make the MCU look like a nostalgia dispensing machine and not a place to look for exciting new takes on these Marvel characters. It's actually kind of fitting, because it feels like something similar has been happening for decades in the comics that these are all based on as well. I cannot even begin to name all the rehashing of old storylines told from a different angle, or classic characters brought back as a wink to old fans that go on in that medium. And for the record, I'm not always opposed to that. Sometimes they can produce some of my favorite comics of the last 10 years, like Spider-Man Life Story. But it can definitely be stifling, and it makes the new feel less important than the return of the old. I think that's a very dangerous precedent to set. And when they go to that well over and over again, it seems like they're only thinking in the short term. It's one thing to bring back beloved characters for a moment of fan service, or if you feel like they genuinely have something to add, but it's another to let that nostalgia drive your entire strategy. One of the biggest risks here is that by focusing too much on the past, Marvel might be missing out on the biggest opportunity that they've had in years, a chance to do a new take on the X-Men. I like the Fox X-Men movies overall. There's some clear duds in there, but some real winners as well. The fact is though, they left tons and tons of great material on the table. Stories, characters, and even tones that they've never touched that I would love to see done justice on the big screen. That's what I was excited about, and that's what I would still like to see. And I'm sure they'll do a movie called X-Men : something eventually, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was somehow positioned as a continuation of those Fox movies. And even if it isn't, they've watered down what a new X-Men movie would mean by endlessly inserting characters from the old ones into other things. There's also a huge chance that they just go with what already has worked. Deadpool and Wolverine are obviously massive draws, so what's the incentive to take a risk on a whole new X-Men team when you can just go back to these known quantities? It's an open question whether Hugh Jackman would return, but after he returned post-Logan, I really wouldn't be shocked to see that. He's great as Logan. I don't want to seem like I'm denigrating that performance at all, but I don't think an X-Men movie needs to live or die by Wolverine, like the majority of the Fox films do. And even if they did want to use that character in some kind of X-Men reboot, I would like to see a different take on Logan. I don't think people who have only seen the movies are really aware of just how many directions there are to take that character. Deadpool, I'm less precious about. If they want to make Deadpool a series of team-ups with other nostalgia heroes, I'd be fine with it, honestly. I've heard talk of a possible Deadpool and Hulk sequel, but come on, Deadpool and Spider-Man is the most obvious move here, if they could work it out with Sony. They have a very popular friendship in the comics, there's plenty of Spider-Man to choose from. I think Andrew Garfield's would be the most inspired choice, and I'm fine with that series just being filled with inside jokes. That's always been part of its DNA. But for the MCU as a whole, I don't think this continued obsession with the past helps Marvel's future. They've obviously had trouble launching new MCU heroes lately, but I don't think the lesson here is to lean on the old. It's to put those new heroes in better movies. As nice as it was to see Hugh Jackman again, you can't just rely on that novelty powering the Marvel Cinematic Universe forever. Oh, and one last thing. Please check out the first issue of my sci-fi and pirate adventure novel, Binary Sea. The digital edition is on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited right now. I know that physical editions haven't been available in a while. Comic shipping is honestly pretty difficult and pricey, but I'm looking into bringing those back soon. Still, I love our digital editions, and they make our comic available to read immediately. If you do read it, I'd also love for you to leave a review on Amazon, like McAllister Grant did. His review is really insightful and also too long to get through all of here, but it begins, I'm kind of reeling over how good this was. I didn't expect much going in. I'm a regular viewer of the writer's YouTube channel, but that's it. Not a friend, not a Patreon subscriber, nothing like that. It's a debut, so I was basically just hoping it would be readable at all. Honestly, if it had been anything short of phenomenal, I doubt I would be writing a review at all. Well folks, it was phenomenal. Honestly, some of the best character writing I've read in a comic. Maybe ever. Man, that was an ego booster to come across at 2 in the morning, I'm not gonna lie. Thank you so much, and I will keep you all updated on issue 2. We're making a lot of progress on the art now, and I'm really excited about it. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.